So now we're talking about Chapter 2, engaging productively with others. The goal of Chapter 2 is to encourage and guide us as we engage with others, especially those who are different from us. This chapter focuses on finding common ground, practicing empathy, and learning how to have productive and respectful conversations with people who hold opposing views. Breaking out of echo chambers, the concept of silos. We tend to surround ourselves with like-minded people, limiting our exposure to different viewpoints. These filter bubbles or echo chambers are not reflective of the real world where diverse values and ideas exist. Break out of your echo chambers and engage with people who have different values and positions than you. Listen with empathy and seek to understand others' worldviews and experiences. This takes practice but can lead to more meaningful connections. Practice empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand and share feelings of another person. However, empathy doesn't mean you have to agree or compromise your values. As Dylan Marin says in his TED Talk, empathy is not an endorsement, it's about acknowledging others' views. How to practice empathy. Be curious about why someone feels the way they do. Ask questions like, why do you think so? How have your life experiences shaped your position? What do you think others see differently? What would you need to happen for you to rethink your position? And what do you want those who disagree with you to understand about your position? I really like some of these questions, and I think I said this last year when I taught this class, but I would like to ask some of these questions more when I engage in conversations, even with people I don't agree with. How have your life experiences shaped your position? I think that's a great question for people, right? Like, they could tell you a lot of things of why they feel a certain way. And you don't necessarily have to argue with somebody. Again, I was saying earlier, but I really don't like to argue about things. It's not really fun for me, and I'm more interested in understanding why people think the way that they think or why their ideas are shaped. So I think some of these questions would be a good one to ask without getting into an argument. People want to talk about their opinions, right? So ask them what life experiences shaped your position in this, right? And the other one I really like here is, what do you want those who disagree with you to understand about your position? Right? It might be interesting to be like, why? Like, why do you feel that way? So, tip from lawyers, try arguing both sides of an argument, even if you don't agree with one side. Many lawyers take on cases for clients they don't believe in, but they argue effectively because they understand the logic behind both sides. That's something that they teach you in law school. It doesn't really matter how you feel, right? You're writing an argument based on one side or the other. So try to think about that whenever you go into any conversation. It's like, what are the pros and cons of each of these sides? Reflective listening. Think about a conversation you've had with someone you disagree with. Did you ask questions to understand their point of view? How could the questions in this chapter have changed that conversation? And what will you do differently next time? Listening to people's stories. Why listen? Listening to others helps us understand not only their experiences, but also the context that shaped their views. It requires withholding judgment and giving the other person space to speak. Good listening tips. Avoid interrupting, sometimes harder than it seems. Engage with people whose ideas and values differ from yours, and be open to learning from their stories. Searching for common ground. The importance of common ground. Even if it's just small connection, finding common ground can help move conversations forward. Some people believe it's pointless to search for common ground with those who hold problematic views. What are your thoughts based on your experiences? Do you think finding common ground is useful? Then we're on to examining your own position, using rhetorical situations to think about how you feel about things. Self-reflection questions. Why is this issue important to me? 2. What emotions or experiences shape my stance? 3. Do I identify with one side and why? 4. What information am I using to support my position? Is it reliable? 5. What am I sure or unsure about? 6. What's my biggest fear about discussing this issue? And 7, how can I respond with curiosity rather than judgment? 7 principles for productive conversations. Guiding principles. When engaging in challenging conversations, follow these principles. 1, stay engaged. 2, listen to understand, not just to respond. 3, allow time between speakers. 4, critique ideas, not people. I think that's an important one, right? We're critiquing ideas and not the people. 5, speak only if others have had the chance to talk. 6, be open to discomfort. And 7, expect no clear resolution. Sometimes listening and thinking is enough. Reflect on past conversations. Think about a time you had a disagreement with someone. How'd you handle it? Were you satisfied with the outcome? What would you do differently? And how can you apply these principles in future interactions? I think I would use exactly what I was just talking about. I want to start using these questions. I might have to write it on a note in my phone so I can start asking people how their life experiences shape their position. I can remember that question and that I want to use it in the future. The role of empathy in discussions. Empathy allows you to understand others without agreeing with them. It involves asking questions, listening to their stories, and finding common ground. By doing this, we can engage more productively in conversations and foster mutual respect even when we disagree. Applying what we've learned, be open to challenging conversations. Use the tools of empathy and reflective listening. Be curious, ask thoughtful questions, and find ways to engage with people who think differently. Self-examination. Continuously reflect on your own beliefs, experiences, and biases. Aim for understanding. Even if conversations don't result in agreement, they can still foster greater understanding and respect. We're going to go to Everyone's an Author, Chapter 3, Thinking About Your Rhetorical Situation. As students are often tasked with assignments that have specific guidelines, the genre to follow, the medium to use, and of course the due date. Understanding how to navigate these elements is essential in becoming an effective writer. Effective writers, whether students, teachers, or journalists, know how to analyze their rhetorical situations. This can sometimes be intuitive, but other times you'll need to break down your situation more systematically. Let's walk through how to think about your rhetorical situations more thoroughly. 1. Motivation for writing. Before you start writing, it's crucial to understand why you're writing. Ask yourself, what's your motivation for writing? Is it to fulfill a course requirement? To express your ideas to someone? To meet a professional commitment? What is your primary goal in writing? To inform your audience, to persuade them, to call them to action, or maybe even to entertain. For example, if you want to persuade your neighbors to recycle, your writing will be quite different from a report that informs a company about recycling programs. Your goals will shape not just the content, but also the medium, design, and tone of your work. 2. Think about genre. Genre plays a big role in shaping your writing. Have you been assigned a specific genre? If not, does the assignment imply a certain genre? For instance, evaluate may suggest a review, while explain why could indicate a casual analysis. If you have the freedom to choose your genre, consider your purpose. If you want to convince readers to recycle, you might write an argument. If you want to explain how to compost, you'll probably write a process analysis. How does your genre affect your tone, organization, and design? A lab report requires a factual tone, while a film review may be more casual. Design expectations differ too. A review of an art show likely needs images, while a research paper requires a professional typeface and citation format. 3. Think about your audience. Understanding your audience is crucial for effective writing. Who is your intended audience? An instructor, classmate, a broader group? Could anyone else come across your work, such as a website, visitors, or social media followers? How are they like or unlike you? Consider demographics such as age, gender, education, occupation, and political views. What background knowledge will your audience need? Will they need definitions for technical terms, or will jargon turn them off? Will your audience expect a particular genre? A music student might write an analysis of a Mozart composition, while a YouTube video reviewer would create a more casual commentary. Think about your stance. Your stance is your attitude toward your topic, and it influences how you write. How do you feel about your topic? Are you objective, supportive, skeptical, or angry? Do your feelings toward your audience affect your stance? And how will you convey your stance in your writing? What tone do you want to use? Will your tone and stance resonate with your audience? Tip: your stance and tone need to align with your audience's expectations to engage them effectively. The larger context. Consider the larger context in which you're writing. What has already been said on your topic? How does this influence what you'll say? What is the most effective way to add your voice to the ongoing conversation? And then, do you face any constraints? When is the deadline? How much time can you devote to this? How many pages or minutes do you have to deliver your message? 6. Language choices. What language does your rhetorical situation call for? What level of formality is expected? Is a serious tone needed, or can it be lighthearted and informal? Will technical jargon be appropriate, or should you simplify your language? Your audience and purpose will guide you in selecting the right tone and language. Medium and design. The medium in which you deliver your message can shape what you write. Which medium will work best for your audience and purpose? Print, digital, spoken, or a combination? How does the medium affect your choice? A print essay is organized into paragraphs, but a slide presentation relies on images and bullet points. Should you include visuals? Would images or videos help convey your message? Are charts, graphs, or tables necessary to illustrate statistical data? For digital or spoken text, you might even think about including sound or video elements. Now reflect on your own writing. Make a list of everything you've written in the last week: text, social media posts, essays, etc. Pick 2 pieces of writing that seem most different and analyze their rhetorical situations. How did the audience, genre, and medium shape these pieces? And what do you think was more effective and why? We'll skip this. Understanding and thinking through your rhetorical situation is essential for effective communication. From your motivation and stance to your audience and genre, each element plays a vital role in shaping how you craft your message. The more thoughtful you are about these factors, the more successful your writing will be. Now we're talking about personal writing style. Writing style is like a personal style. It develops over time through practice and experience. Just like how we express our personal identity through clothing or hobbies, our writing style expresses our thoughts and personality. After writing for prolonged periods, you'll naturally develop your own writing style. This growth is a natural process, much like how personal style evolves over time. Suitability and correctness in writing style. You should always match your writing style to your topic, medium, and audience. For example, writing an academic paper versus writing a personal blog post. The formality and structure differ based on the intended audience and purpose. Consider your rhetorical situation. Who's your audience and what your writing aims to accomplish? Does the style of writing meet audience expectations, or are you intentionally breaking the mold? Connect with audiences. A good writer establishes common ground with their readers, which makes it easier for the audience to relate to their content. Strategy. Start with clear definitions or common knowledge when presenting a new idea, then build your argument on that foundation. Levels of formality. Cicero's 3 styles. The Roman orator Cicero identified 3 levels of style that are still relevant today. We have the low, plain style, used to teach or explain information. For example, instruction manuals. We have the middle style, used to please or entertain an audience. For example, casual essays, personal stories. And then we have grand style, used to persuade or move an audience, speeches, editorials. Key point, different writing situations require different levels of formality. It's important to adjust your style based on the audience's needs and expectations. Stance, attitude toward the topic and audience. Stance refers to the attitude or position you take toward your subject and audience. Do you agree, disagree, or remain neutral on the subject? Does your stance align with your audience's expectations and your purpose for writing? Key takeaway, consider whether your stance is appropriate for the topic, audience, and medium. Adjust your approach accordingly. Tone, setting the mood of your writing. Tone refers to emotional attitude conveyed through your writing. For example, a Facebook post will likely have a different tone from an academic essay. Every piece of writing has a tone, whether you're consciously aware of it or not. Even casual messages like text messages or social media posts have a tone: serious, humorous, frustrated, etc. Factors influencing tone, your purpose, audience, stance, and medium all help shape the tone of your writing. Style across disciplines, active versus passive voice. Active versus passive voice. The preference for active or passive voice can vary depending on the field. In the sciences, for example, the passive voice is often used to maintain objectivity and focus on the process rather than the person performing the task. For example, the experiment was conducted, passive, versus we conducted the experiment, active. The key lesson here? The expectations for style vary between disciplines, so always be sure to understand what's preferred in your field of study. Thinking about your own style. When developing your writing style, consider these 4 key elements. 1. What's your stance? What's your attitude toward the topic? 2. Purpose. Why are you writing? 3. Genre. What type of writing are you doing? Essay, blog post, speech? Audience, who are you writing for? How does your writing style change depending on the context? You might instinctively use different styles for different reasons. Style naturally changes to match genre and audience. Style and precision, using clear, precise language, precision in language. The words you choose can significantly impact how your audience understands and engages with your writing. For example, using vivid, precise words helps readers picture what you're describing more closely. Consider how your choice of words impacts tone, clarity, engagement. Are you using language that fits your audience's expectations? And in conclusion, developing your own style over time. As you continue to write, your style will naturally develop and evolve. Each piece of writing is an opportunity to refine your tone, stance, and overall approach. Remember, your writing should always aim to connect with your audience and serve your purpose effectively, whether you're writing an academic essay, a blog post, or a social media post. And then we have active versus passive voice in writing. We just talked a little bit about it, but we're going to talk more here. Definition of active voice. In active voice, the subject of the sentence is doing the action. For example, the student reads the book. The structure is subject, verb, object. This makes it clear who is performing the action. Definition of passive voice. In passive voice, the object of the sentence becomes the subject, and the action is performed by someone, sometimes unspecified. For example, the book was read by the student. Here we have the structure is the object, verb, and by subject. Passive voice can sometimes obscure who is responsible for the action. When to use active voice. Active voice is clearer and more direct. It makes writing straightforward, allowing readers to understand immediately who is performing the action. For example, the chef cooked the meal versus the meal was cooked by the chef. The sentence in active voice leaves no confusion about who performed the action. Engagement. Writing in active voice engages readers by making sentences more dynamic. Active sentences tend to be shorter, more concise, and easier to follow. Active voice creates a sense of immediacy and draws the reader's attention to the subject of the action. When to use passive voice. When the actor is unknown or unimportant. Passive voice can be useful when the focus is on the action or the result rather than who performed the action. Example, the windows were broken during the storm. In this case, it may not matter who broke the windows. What's important is that the windows are broken. Scientific and formal writing. In scientific or technical writing, passive voice is often preferred because the focus is on the process or results, not on the researcher. For example, the experiment was conducted to test the hypothesis. This shifts attention of the experiment itself rather than who performed it. Avoiding blame. Passive voice is sometimes used to avoid placing blame or responsibility. For example, mistakes were made versus I made mistakes. The passive construction hides or softens the responsibility for the action. Common pitfalls with passive voice. Overuse can make writing vague. Overusing passive voice can lead to vague or weak writing. For example, the problem was fixed leaves readers wondering who fixed the problem. Where the active version, the technician fixed the problem, is much clearer and stronger. Then we have unnecessary complexity. Passive voice can make sentences longer and more complex than necessary. For example, the report was written by the researcher last week, whereas the active version would be the researcher wrote the report last week. When both voices are appropriate. Balancing active and passive voice. It's important to recognize that both voices have their place in writing. While active voice often strengthens clarity and engagement, passive voice can be useful when the doer of the action isn't as important. Choose your voice based on your writing goals and the message you want to convey. Conclusion, why active voice often strengthens writing. Active voice promotes strong writing. It makes sentences clearer, more concise, and more engaging. Writers should aim to use active voice whenever possible to create a more direct and compelling style. Passive voice has its uses. It can be valuable in certain contexts, especially in formal scientific or technical writing, where the focus is on the action or result. Review your writing and look for instances where active voice can make your sentences stronger and more precise.